Good morning and good evening to all, depending on where you're joining us from. Today, our webinar is on future ready networks, how GenAI is shaping network transformation. So, when we talk about network transformation, it has been a relevant topic in the operators world for about a decade. The movement from legacy devices to software centricity, cloud centricity, that has given operators a tremendous flexibility in building and operating the systems. However, we are in what I would call as a revolution rather than an evolution, where there's a transformational shift happening in the notion of networks, where we are moving from software centricity to AI centricity. This is because of the proliferation of data, the power of data, and what we can do with it to build, optimize, and maintain these next generation networks. And of course, when you talk about data, the forefront of it is generative AI, the exciting possibilities it brings in terms of the rollouts, the builds, and how we can do our maintenance in a different and a more efficient way. So, with this quick introduction, I am Ramesh Ramanathan, will be a moderator for this session. I have two esteemed speakers with me today. One thing they both share in common is over 2 decades of experience with Tata Elixir. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Rajagopalan, CTO, Tata Elixir. So he has been in the forefront of building innovative products for and solutions for telecom operators for 2+ decades. So this includes a variety of domains, starting from the radio, it could be with WiMAX, LTE, all the way to building SDN NFV enabled next generation networks. And this is what puts him in a vantage position to talk about the transformation that operators are going to and what GenAI can do for them. Our other speaker today is Mr. Biswas, Chief Data Scientist, Tata Elixir. BIS, as he is fondly known as, has over 3 patents in AI and data. He has been leading the AI Center of Excellence in Tata Elixir for a decade now and has done variety of autonomous transformational projects across various business verticals like media, communication, healthcare, and transportation. So this gives a very interesting perspective from his side on what AI and GenAI can do in general for the industry. So we have a very good combination of speakers. One who has seen the transformation of networks in Rajaji, and another speaker who comes in from the data and AI background. So this hopefully will be a very enlightening webinar for all you viewers. And before I start, just a quick rundown of the format. Both speakers will share their perspective, and after that there'll be a Q&A session. So please feel free to post your questions on the chat as we go along. So to begin with this, there's been a lot of talk about Gen AI and its transformational power. So first, to just set the context, what is the difference between generative AI and the traditional AI and the models that we deal with?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ramesh, and a very warm welcome to all the audience who have joined in for this webinar. And it's a very pertinent question. I mean, everybody has this doubt. Generative AI is a lot of hype. It is the top of the hype curve. So, what is the difference between these and a traditional AI model? So, generative AI is basically a class of models, or it uses the deep learning models to which has a capability to generate new things. I mean, or new content. So it all started with the NLPs and language processing, is primarily the natural language processing, and then from there it became a multimodal. It can handle different types of data, audio, image, sensor data, anything. So these generative models basically a very complex way of creating a new set of content from a given set of content, and seemingly creating a very new content or a new thing using those information which has been trained on. Now, the generative AIs are primarily, powered by the LLMs, or what you call is large language model. And in fact, that language model itself is, transforming towards like multimodal LLM, or what you call is large multimodal models, and even further evolution happening, which is action models, because models are continuously, trying to not just restricting themselves towards inferences, but also taking actions at the physical world. Inference to actions is coming into place. A traditional way, in the other hand, is mainly a probabilistic model, and it's a very closed domain topic. It works on a very small data set. It's a bespoke model where a problem can be solved, or a class of problem can be solved in a very precise way, very very since it learns from the very concise format of a data, so it is very specific to the problem it is addressing. Whereas in a generative AI, the model is quite open domain, and it can kind of work across different subject. As I talked, it is also a multimodal capability. So since it has a much wider domain, open domain topics, and many different types of issues it can handle, so people's imagination has really taken a lot of very wide, and people can solve a much bigger set of problems. So for example, if you are working with a traditional AI model, for every type of data you have to build a bunch of models. So typically, when we used to solve larger complex AI problem, we used to build 10, 15, maybe 100 models to solve one particular issue. Whereas today, because of this usage of the generative model, especially this powered by LLMs, we can kind of focus on problem in a more holistic way, and the problem has actually shifted in solving the problem, rather than handling a typical data science problem where we have to kind of which model to use, how to operate, or how to curate the data, how to handle the data set complexity, model set complexity, the pure data science thing. So the generative AI has given that power of kind of a democratizing the AI. So lot many people can come into this domain of AI problem solving, as people get more time to solve the problem, stay with the problem and solving it, rather than worrying about too much on how the data science part of the problem can be solved. So this is probably a very short summary, but yes, we can go on. But I'll probably for now give these two three key differences.
So thank you, Gus. That's interesting. So GenAI, given its openness and probably more intuitive for the end users, makes it more convenient to solve problems and becomes a framework for new thought and new approaches to solving issues. So Rajji, moving on to you. First, congrats on being made the TSDSI roadmap chairman to lead the initiatives for standardization for telecom operators in India. So, with this background that we got from this, so what do you think is the role of Gen AI at the 50,000 feet level for telecom operators, and do you think it is going to be a game changer for them?
And thanks, Ramesh, and thanks, Biswas, for setting up the stage. And welcome all the audience to this exciting conversation out here. Uh, so, first of all, as you had alluded, Ramesh, this network telcos in general is going through a considerable amount of transformation. The transformation, I would say, a couple of decades back started with software defined network, SDN, as they call it. So now it is transforming itself into, if I can call it, ADN, artificial intelligence driven network. So the reason why I'm saying is even SDN took a considerable amount of journey. It took a considerable amount of journey to mature and transform the culture, transform the products, transform the way their network is done, the entire life cycle, right from the planning, deployment, commissioning of the new services, the way the services are delivered to the customer, how the customers are consuming the services. It brought about the transformation across all the segments, right from how the network is being planned, conceived, deployed, and offered as a service. In similar form, the AI is transforming the way the network is going to be planned, deployed, commissioned, and serviced as a overall connectivity and the way it's going to impact the society through the AI part, the AI native network, or AI centric network. So the telcos in the telecom space, the way this SDN transformed itself as a digital transformation, the AI has the potential to transform themselves as a AI native company. And since the telcos, some of the leading telcos, if you look into it, they are claiming themselves as an AI company. They the products are going to be delivered as a AI transformed products and services. The end consumers are going to consume the services through the AI. The internal operations are going to be transformed through AI operations. So, like the digital transformation transformed the products and services, the culture of the telcos as a company, the operating model as an enterprise as a transformed corporation. Similarly, the AI and GenAI is having the potential to transform themselves in this space. And this is where some of the succinct points what Biswas had highlighted here, the multimodal capability of large language model is not just restricted to the text as an interface or the the text is alone the consuming part for the LLMs. It can consume the videos, it can consume the images, it can consume the other inputs, other forms of inputs. And then the other related inputs is how the actionable part is being brought into it. So that is where the agentic part of it is going to come in. Not the interface is not going to be limited to a conversation. The interface is going to extend to an agentic model where a specific set of tasks can be carried out by the GenAI enabled AI agent. It could be a task related to an operation. So it's something to do with if an event, an alarm happens along this line, it needs to translate into expanding the capacity temporally for meeting the quality of experience of the consumer. So these are some of the high level possibilities that exist by the agentic nature of the LLMs. While we are trying to say, is there no challenges with telcos and in adopting the LLM? There are, I would say, considerable challenges are ahead. The reason is that a lot of domain informations are needed for the LLMs. For the general purpose LLM, there are a lot of informations which are available in the public. But when it comes to telcos, this telco as an industry, this information is privy to the telcos. So there is a lot of domain information which is required. And then the LLM operates on billions of parameters. It needs a lot of computational power. It, in some sense, it goes against the sustainability goals. In a sense, you need to kind of crunch so many number of parameters to train the foundational models and then have it ready and then how it can be contextualized and so on and so forth. The These are the challenges which is ahead of the telco industry, and there are a lot of research is happening. I think Biswas would be able to further touch down on how an a short language model can complement or in between a large language model and short language model, how that exchange of context can be shared, compressing of the semantics, quantization, and the agentic model, the RAG architecture. The many things are being worked across. So in the telcos, it is still a lot of experimentation, POC, and optimizing to the context is happening, and the the return of investment is going to be happening today. It may not be today, but I think that investment in R&D and then experimentation and optimization has to happen now, so that nobody miss the bus. And then the whole transforming themselves into a transformation as an A native telcos, and then delivering that experience to the end customers in a AI application. So there are a lot of possibility happens in the AI application itself. As we go along, we can talk about this. Uh, that's what I would kind of submit here to Biswas and you to further discuss.
Thank you, Raji. AD and AI-driven networking. That's a very interesting way to put it. Where we are going to have data and AI drive be the first class citizen to drive the centers, the networks, where we can correlate the uncorrelated and build the intelligence to be able to automate and take towards low touch operations. But one interesting point that we touched upon is for this to be practical, the need for domain specific LLMs, the quality of the data to make this a reality. So moving on to you, Bis, any would like to have your thoughts on that, Bis, because a lot of dreams, a lot of buzz, but the LLMs need to be ready. They need to have the domain intelligence, if I were to say, to make it all come together and make it a success. So, what are your thoughts, Bis, on this?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key aspect of this generative AI for telco is the more and more usage of the large language models and generative models for solving problem, and it encompasses like varieties of problems can be solved, whether it is a customer support, the incidents management, ticket management, root cause analysis, giving a holistic view of how the service is being rendered, even intent based networking, which is some of this. So many of these problems, the common solutions or things can be definitely done with these some of the evolved generative models. However, there is an increasing need, especially when it comes to very very domain affinity problem related issues. For example, if you are trying to solve a engineering issue which is very very domain centric, you need to have a very strong the technical know-how. So there, probably the open domain large language models may not be that useful, and we see those limitations. So, for example, understanding the device logs, the server logs, and these are not really a natural language, whereas the LLMs are generally built considering the natural languages, and the entire the attention models, the positional encoders, the bidirectional encoders, byte pair coding, all these concepts used in the building a large language model. These are all keeping natural language in mind, the way the language is used, but which is not the case really for a typical server log or a machine logs or a generated logs. So this telco LLM is a new term which is being we are hearing a lot, and people have started working on it. There are there are some of the telecom companies have already started looking at this telco LLM. So this telco LLM is a collection of all these technologies which primarily uses all the device logs, the user manuals, or the wiki pages of their devices, the all the technical documentation. So, and even the network diagram, the topology diagram, the configuration parameters, the the complete chain of the information which is available, putting it in a large language format, and then build the very specific LLM, which is telco LLMs can be used. And using that LLM, the telco LLM, varieties of services can be built, which can be very intuitively solving problem. For example, if there is a ticket management to be done, if there are network issues, the LLM can the agentic framework which is built on top of these LLMs, they can interact between them, and then they can exactly solve that particular problem by querying different subsystems, finding out the right configuration, and applying a configuration which will potentially solve the problem. So all these different types of issues, whether it is a engineering issues or customer insights or even self heal or self surveys about. So some of these complex human in loop kind of a systems can be automated using these domain targeted LLMs. And so that's what we see is kind of and we are seeing some of these services are coming up. We also are looking at building a small language model or SLM, which Rajaji talked about. The SLMs are it has all the good points of LLM, but it is not really so heavy like billions of parameters, and so that it cannot be put to a age. So one of the advantage of this small language model, which are for specifically to be designed for telcos and being targeted for telcos, can actually run on edge. And in one of the key requirements of some of these network operations managements and the cloud the management of some of these issues, the model has to work as close as to the edge device. So because your latency comes down, your reaction time is very very short. You can fix the issues before it actually fans out, doubles down. So all of these advantages actually is available when you have a small language model right on the edge, which can take immediate decisions and solve the problem and localize the issue, and then take corrective actions. So these are the techniques or things which are coming, which kind of helping the telcos to adopt these AI technologies and automate as much as possible, address their NPS issues and other things which is actually trying to and these are the ways to the modern networks are trying to reinvent themselves and kind of repurposing their entire service portfolio. So that's what would be my take, and this is what I am observing in this domain. And yeah, maybe I'll talk further more about some of the the trends which are coming, like how this journey is going to be culminating towards a more higher automation, higher more advantages in terms of solving these automation problems or network issues in a truly advanced automated operations.
Thank you, Bis.
So if I can,
Yes, Rajan, please.
thanks, Ramesh and Bis. If I can add a couple of points and comments to what Bis had said, as I think it's a great point to highlight on the telco domain-specific LLM and then the kind of data sources which it needs to rely on, right from the device logs and then the user manual and the ticketing system, RCA, and as Biswas had elucidated, even the 3GPP specifications or technical specifications for resolving higher level of issues. In the sense, in the customer ticket, it goes from various layers and stages of issues. So from L1, L2, L3. So this brings about the GenAI and then agentic characteristics of GenAI provides possibility of better comprehension of the issues, better correlating of the events with respect to what is there in the log, what is the supposedly the behavior, what is specified in the specification. So it adds up the level of intelligence with which the problem can be looked upon. So the operations is one definite low-hanging fruit as a use case for the telcos with the telco LLM coming in place, and that's a great point. What this said alluded earlier. That's the point I just want to comment.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Rajan. So, by using a variety of data sources, both based on our experience, which would be the logs that we generate during a day-to-day transactions, as well as using specifications, vendor manuals, we build a much better knowledge base, which can help us to triage, do an RCA, and then help improve the performance of the network. Right. uh, help build what we would like to call probably as an operation first network, where the entire network design rollout is based on data, keeping operations in mind as a first principle. So thanks, Rajiv, for that. So this, when we talk about adopting these technologies, right? So we talked
Right.
about different avatars of Gen AI. It's we talked about the use cases to triage issues, but when operators want to adopt this technology, it's going to be a journey, right? So
Right.
end of the day, it's a transformation. So what kind of best practices would you recommend to operators on the journey towards Gen AI?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'm sure a lot of people have these, also in mind how a organization or a telco organization start this journey. As there are, the technology landscape is really vast and quite a variety of it. So I see there are four stages people go through, or these organizations go through. So first is to create a very good observability layer of platforms. So primarily, like there are platforms which has got their data, and they come with a lot of observability systems built, like how these incidents are coming, how is it getting reported, the correlating the points, summarizing the key events, and generating lots of dashboards. So typically if you see any of these knock operations and things, they have a very good systems built up. And today about 50-55, almost 60% organization has a very good observability platform built, multiple of them. And at many places these platforms are actually correlating their data across and deriving meaningful insights. Very good business intelligence platforms are being built. So that's the stage one. Next stage is building the data models for them. Now the data models is slightly more complex just than the observability platform. So data models is basically, now you have these hundreds of data points coming from various sources, some very fast real time, some a little static, from different parts of the organizations, customers, fields, etc. Internet, yeah, the social media itself is another source of data. So all of these is coming from some of the data are in your control or the telco's control. Some are not in their control, but they are equally business critical, because what's happening in the world. And there are data intelligence platforms people are building, where people are collecting data from open domain, public domain, and then which is filtered for the business critical information. So and then they're ingesting into their own data framework. So that is what we call the data model. So this data model has to be very robustly built. It has to kind of filter out all other noise and get the right part of the data system which is ready for immediate usage of AI model building, and serving all the AI operations further upstream. So that's the second stage. And I see about 15 to 20% of companies are into that already. They have good data models. They have built their data pipelines. They have also built a data pipeline monitoring system, reliability engineering system. So we see those evidences of organizations already into that second layer of maturity. Third, which is even more evolved, is context model. So it's from data model, now we evolve to a context model, because there you are contextualizing the data. So now you have good it's good that you have a data model, but you have to contextualizing for the custom, which are business critical, which are customer critical, which is intent critical. Can your data be sliced the way you want at the right time, right context, and at the right point of time. So where these data can be rightly served for the AI model which has been built for the inferences which you are looking for, the next best action and things like that. So that's the context model. So this is a purely AI ML driven play. And lots of bespoke models, and companies have been innovating on these areas. So there's a good space to innovate in these areas. So that's and even fewer companies are into that. I mean, less than 10% companies into that. And this is where the cross domain interconnects happen, and multiple of services gets built. And this is a good foundation of building the next generation AI services to be built and truly transforming a telecom kind of industry. And fourth, which is still evolving and we are still seeing the early shoots of that, is called agentic models. Now, these agentic models are almost like a virtual, systems which is overseeing this entire, context models, data, and these NOC platforms and things, and deriving at right insights, right informations, and serving and almost, automatically handling at least as much as possible 70-80% of the operations of the network on its own, whether it is provisioning, deploying, solving, day-to-day problems, triaging issues, finding root cause, knocking off the points which are going to be super critical before it actually fails, and then taking the corrective actions at right point of time. So it's more preventive, and it is not a reactive anymore, and it is more preventive and a proactive kind of a system. So this is the fourth stage of maturity, called agentic model based telco network, which is still in the coming. That is where the intent based networks and IVNs actually will be become very successful. How these kind of services will be served. So uh, uh, and there are few of the early discussions we see and some of the works happening. We ourselves are into some of the some of our early thoughts of how we get into those agentic models. How do we move from context models to agentic models using our AIML pipelines, and rightly using the generative AI models in a way which kind of transcends towards those evolution of the system. Yeah.
Thanks, Miss. A very interesting maturity model, starting from observability to data models to context models and then agentic models, various levels of maturity that can drive the transformation. So, Raji, so BIS gave a good frame of reference on a maturity from a GenAI modeling perspective. So, applying this to the field of networks, right? TM Forum has a notion of autonomous levels as well. It goes from 0 to 5. So, how do you map this to the notions of TM Forum, and what recommendations would you have to for operators to move up the scale on the autonomous maturity levels?
Ramesh, this is an interesting and very engaging question to say, because we need to build on this. So, if I can just start building on what Bis had outlined, in the sense that contextual model, the agentic part. So, there are two things which are connecting this from the intent-based network, and then policy-driven network, and programmable network. So, in this place, the current world of automation and orchestrators can be elevated by infusing AI into it, and then they can be a policy based AI driven networks, AI intent driven networks. That intent could be you know, for the provisioning of the network, the intent could be for scaling out the network, intent could be even for, I would say, meeting the customer's quality of experience demands, most importantly on the security intents. So it could be spanning across all these themes. And towards this, in the product platform, whatever we have in the name of Neuron, we already have integrating the, the platform, what Biswas and team is building as part of the, the Tata Alexis big data platform called as TEDx. That brings in the contextual part of it. And just expanding on this, the the agentic model is something which is very very exciting in the sense that the capability which is required for agentic model is the integration into the workflows, the dynamic workflows, integration into the external systems. When I say external systems, it spans across the ticketing system, it spans across the documentation repository where the, the logs and syslogs could be there. The integration into the data lakes, integration into the data ocean, whatever we call about. So, and then you can have the agentic property for operations team, agentic property for marketing team, agentic property for cross-selling, promotional team. So this is creating a semblance of autonomous network, but the direction I was trying to take is from operation centric view and taking it to the autonomy. So the TM forum, yes, it indeed talks about autonomous network. It is more modeled along the autonomous vehicle level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. But I was trying to further drive down the fact ops centric, pragmatic way of moving from what it is state of art to a low touch and then bringing back to possibly a TM forum 3.5 or 4. So for those elements, it needs to build on intents for provisioning, intents for monitoring, intents for predictive, proactive remediations, intents for security policy, extending to the agentic structure what Viswas was alluding to. So going up to the TM Forum 4, the full autonomy is still at this point of time a bit skeptical because the risk elements associated to it. Hence, and all the operation can be made autonomous? I would say possibly no. The risk involved in, let's say, starting a CU or DU running at the edge will have an impact on so many number of subscribers and service outages and so on and so forth. So it's still a human in loop or maybe a very evolved agentic in loop has to be common, but that's somewhat we are a bit far away is what I would believe at this point.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ramesh.
Raji. So, intent, I think, intent being multifaceted in nature, right? Intent that can go across, fulfillment, assurance, I mean, even within fulfillment, something that can go across infrastructure, service, security, so that these intents combined together can help create the so-called low-touch networks, moving towards higher levels of autonomy. So Raji, when you were talking about, you mentioned about Neuron. I believe it's Tata Alexa's award-winning platform for network transformation, including the recently concluded India Mobile Congress, where it won the most innovative telecom software of the year award. So could you shed more light on what is Neuron, what it does for telecom operators, as well as how you're leveraging GenAI when it comes to
So, Neuron as a platform takes an approach towards automating the operation first. So, as Biswas had alluded earlier, the operation is one of the biggest use case for AI and the GenAI on top of it. And that is where the neuron as a Lego block approach is positioning itself to automate the knock in the paradigm of intelligent knock operation, even on the bordering of the new age description of intelligent knock as dark knock. So it has elements of connecting across multiple domain, either to the NMS through adapters or to the directly to the devices, collate all the telemetry, map onto the first phase of what Biswas talked about as the observability plane, and then feeding on to the the data collection and then data modeling, contextualizing into the platforms like the Tata Alexis big data platform like TEDx, and then taking up to the autonomous operations, closed loop operation in App Store model. The App Store model, what I'm alluding to, has a recipes for the problems which occurred earlier mapped onto a predefined recipes which could be used in a proactive and predictive form to do a closed loop. So the neuron act as a platform which could serve these purposes from observability and integrating with big data platform and data lake to provide contextualizing of the the data towards service assurance and low touch orchestration. And it also extends the data, I would say, visualization capability through digital twin. So it has also has a digital twin as a Lego block using which what if experiments can be done. For example, for planning problems, what needs to happen if there is going to be a huge music events, or it's going to be a football match, or any other event which is happening, political rally or political speech is going to happen, and how you need to elastically add up the capability and capacity from putting RAN and mobile and whatnot. So this could be model using digital twin. It can give us a recommendation, and that can be used in the closed loop form to go back and then provision the network. So the neuron is a suite of Lego block components what Tata Alexei had built, right from intelligence assurance block, then having a that collective cognitive, the big data capability for contextualizing the data, feeding onto the new age agentic capabilities, which we are still experimenting, doing a lot of experiment, and then the digital twin, doing what if. So this is the kind of the full spectrum capabilities of the neuron as a platform.
Thank you, Raji. So, Neuron takes a data first approach, as you had mentioned, towards building low touch orchestration and service assurance, as well as very exciting possibilities of the digital twin for a variety of use cases, like you talked about the capacity planning in build and rollout, in maintenance, to have a single plane of glass to view the entire network. So you had also mentioned about TEDx and other initiatives that you're working with this. So to pick up on that thread, as the chief data scientist at Tata Alexei, what are the key Gen AI initiatives that you're working on to drive transformation?
Yeah, so I think we are looking the GenAI as a transformative technology in data and AI space very very seriously, and quite a few of the initiatives are on, especially for the telecom sector and even otherwise. We are building capability to develop a log language processing kind of a system where we can take in any logs, a vast amount of logs from a device, and create a language model out of it. So under the the SLMs is almost like a some kind of a GPT for the logs, and and also it can understand not just the logs but also the device manuals, all the technical reference manuals or TRLs, even the standards. Standard body documents, if that can be incorporated into this model, so it can kind of cross-reference these informations. So device, its capability, what the model says, what protocol. So we want to kind of tie down all these together and build a SLM or a small language model. So that is one initiative we are working, building the capability to do that. Yes, it is a intense compute intensive operation, and it needs a bunch of very high power GPUs, and we are now looking at how to kind of solve the compute part of the problem. The algorithm and technical architecture part of it we have already kind of broken down. Now we're working on the resource part of it, and to load that data into that system to get that out. So that's one initiative. Second is we are working on our universal data platform. Rajaji mentioned about TEDx, and TEDx is already doing a lot of fascinating work on creating these context models, data models we earlier talked about. So this platform, now we are enhancing more telco oriented use cases, and we are working very closely with Neuron to build all the necessary models, and make sure these the agentic workflows and some of these workflow managements can be automated using these platforms. So that is another second initiative. Third, we are also building a kind of unifying our some of these platforms called Omni AI, So where we are integrating our MLOps platform, data lake platform, and the model factories. So in Tata Elxsi, we have more than 200 AI models built across different problem statement and use cases across, and we are enhancing that and making sure these there is some amount of autonomous way of handling these models, data drift analysis, triggering the automated training, because I mean, when to train the models and when to use the model for inferencing are still some way manual and needs intervention from the human side. So we are trying to automate many of those so that a completely autopilot system can be built for some of these advanced, fast evolving network operation management use cases. So some of these initiatives are going on. And of course, on the GenAI side, we are building a kind of a co-pilot enabling platform. So which basically you bring your application and we'll analyze this application, we'll analyze what kind of data it works with, and a co-pilot can be built for that. So co-pilot is becoming a habit changing technology. Every applications today comes with that, and in fact some expectation has come. Suppose you are working with an application, you have a expectation, if some copilot pops up and then I ask some query and then it helps me to do that job. So that's kind of a future we are looking, and enabling copilot for actions. This is a copilot which can transform itself to different role depending on the context again. So some of these concepts and ideas we are working on, and looking forward to these some of this getting implemented and in customer spaces and available as serviceable products for our esteemed customers.
Thanks, Bis. Very exciting. And when we think about combining the power of these SLMs and co-pilots along with the capability of Neuron, that will give operators enormous control over the way they see data, manipulate data, and run their networks. So, Rajaji, now just to shift gears a little bit to have a different final flavor to this. When we talk about AI, Gen AI, of course, the building block is data, and definitely that brings about the question of data and ethics, right? AI and ethics. So, any thoughts from you, Raji, or what would be a responsible way that we need to keep in mind to very exciting technology, but we need to also be responsible about how we leverage it for transformational purposes.
It's a, I would say it's a very overloaded and complex question everybody is grappling with. We see even in the industry, there are thoughts about constitutional AI. So the constitutional AI, though it is advocated by one of the big proponent in the industry, but the philosophy of it is driving the values and ethics behind the AI systems. It should start from privacy, it should start from avoiding biases, avoiding the the any kind of biases which can come in when the AIs are recommending certain things. So if you ask, it is something still continue to evolve. There's a lot of debates happening, and the guardrails are still putting laid down as things are emerging. There are considerable amount of regulatory recommendations are coming from various regulatory bodies. And for example, EU had come up with its own recommendation regulation, and US has coming up with its own recommendation regulation. Indian government is coming with its own recommendation regulation, but it's still there is no convergence on this. It is at this point of time, the it's like as an organization, as an individual, there has to be a moral compass for all of us who are contributing to this evolution of this particular technology. So we all have a role to play in trying to define something as a morality and ethics, and we also need to contribute to the standardization bodies and organization. That is where we are all working towards. In the industry, still it's work. It is in works, and it is something we all need to do it as a societal responsibility and accountability. Not just as a technology evolution, it is also about the appropriate guardrail to make sure that it is not depriving, it's rather enabling, and it is kind of democratizing it, making it accessible technology or accessible from very many facets. That's the direction it is heading to.
Thank you, Raji. I think very important insight, and like you said, a very overloaded question. I think we'll
Right.
continue to grapple with this for at least several years or maybe a decade to come in. But very important, very pertinent. So this brings us to the end of our Q&A. So thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Bis. But before we move to the audience question, I would like both of you to summarize today's presentation. To start with you, Bis, what would be your key takeaways for the audience on why GenAI is a fundamental building block for building future-ready networks?
Yeah. So thanks, Ramesh. I think Rajaji. I think yes. The key, I would say 3 points again. I mean, which comes to my mind. One, of course, is we need to have a domain-specific language model, which will probably help solving some of these problems which we usually will not be able to solve just by the open domain model. So that's one. And second is AGI for the networking, where some of this model has to be as close as to the edge for solving some of these time critical problems, and to give that the root cause analysis has to be done really, really fast in those examples where the AGI would be important. And third point, which I'm like hearing a lot nowadays, which is post-quantum cryptography. Now, this is an area which is at least showing some alarm bells somewhere. Like once the quantum computing comes, which will happen in any way in a few years down the line, if it solves this, it can break the cryptography in a second. So all our algorithm for the cryptography for network has to be kind of thought and this thing. So probably we'll need to be watchful on these topic, post quantum cryptography and its impact of quantum cryptography in the network, and its impact on networking domain. So I'll probably leave this thought just to be think more about it. There's no immediate answer, but I'm just seeing this question coming in the horizon.
Yes, thank you, Bis. Quantum computing, another very interesting topic, probably for one more webinar. But yes, these are very pertinent thoughts that we need to have in mind as we plan for the future. So, Rajaji, to summarize from your side, the key takeaways.
So, in my mind, the orientation towards ADN, AI-driven network, is one of the key element we all need to reorient. And then though the current state of art, it demands huge computational effort, and then a lot of works are in progress in the GenAI. There has to be continuous experimentation, and that will pay ways to learn and optimize the SLMs, what this was talked about, semantic compression. It's another way of improving the efficiency of the LLM or reducing the compute power requirement of LLM. And how to increase the context by certain techniques in the algorithmic improvements, fundamental architectural improvement in the algorithms. So those are going to emerge as we continue to experiment. The third thing is about openness. The more the telco LLMs are made open, and it kind of paves ways for industries and startups and academia to accelerate the speed at which the innovation can happen. And that will make the evolution of the ADN or the GenAI into multiplier of what the progression, what we had seen in the earlier decade of Moore's law and so on and so forth. So it needs to be exponential speed is possible, and then exponential speed can be made possible by the telcos coming forward and then making it as a open telco LLMs. And that is going to act as a huge catalyst for deriving all the benefits which are made possible by GenAI, and then the derived value can be made accessible to the society at large. And that's the third takeaway I would kind of submit from my standpoint.
Thank you, Raji. I think if the vision of you and BIS goes through, I think GenAI may turn out to be not a disruptive but a destructive technology in the space of network transformation, where it's going to completely reinvent, come up with a new avatar of way things are done. So thank you to the two of you. I think we are at the top of the hour, but we have a whole bunch of questions from our audience. So I think we have time for probably only one or two questions, but other questions we will reply to you over email. So the first question, again, I think a lot of questions on data and privacy. So this, I think Rajaji had his view on the ethics part. So I'll probably give you this to you. So how do organizations balance the adoption of Gen AI while addressing concerns around data privacy and security?
Yeah, I think ever since this AI has come into playbook of corporations and com- and people are innovating products using AI. So data has been, and this issue of privacy security has been a concern. But at the same time, a lot of guardrails are being in place because there are data governance policies are coming in, data access management, data security policies, and companies are investing a lot on how this data is collected, processed, curated for this. There is a especially for telcos who are who has vast amount of informations about the usage patterns of and the user information. So there are well laid out policies and things to remove the PIIs or personally identified informations and segregating the data and keeping it in a there are very well established policies and things coming up. Even then there are like some of these new regulations which are coming, which will make it even more strict and mandated, which is like EU AI Act, or even in Government of India is working on some of these AI policies. So some of these are very focused on these data privacy and security, data management policies, how to stratify the risk of associated with some of these technologies which are built using these data, especially some of these AI models. So there are 4 5 levels of classifications where the lowest risk applications, like even if there is a data leak, it has no harm, no nothing, and it actually nothing, it doesn't matter. And then there are highest order of risk where any personal information leak or anything can have a societal issues and any other personal issues. There could be physical harm to people and etc. So people I mean people who are in responsible positions who are building these AI models and solutions, they should be able to categorize these types of risk and build a set of policies and frames and rules and regulations to kind of segregate this data in such a way that this doesn't go through this problem. And any AI which is getting productionized or implemented and goes through those process and they get certified. So some of these things are still in process and getting discussed, debated, and I'm sure every organization who are developing AI should develop AI in a responsible way and an ethical way, and some of it are becoming the hallmark of an organization who want to do a business in the proper way and the right way. So yes, things are the government side rules and things are coming in place, but as an organization also you have to be equally responsible in handling these scenarios.
Thank you, Miss. We have time for just one more question. And like I said, we will reply to the other questions via email. So, Raji, we have a question from an audience who apparently follows us closely on LinkedIn. So, the question is what is Neuron roadmap strategy with respect to GenAI?
As I had alluded, so this is already infused with AI capabilities in terms of the Lego block approach, what we had adapted as overall solution blueprint, where we had integrating the capabilities what Biz and team is doing in terms of TEDx and then the GenAI capabilities. And already they're all integrated. And today, for some of the intelligent operations and some of the customer programs, they are in motion, they are in operation. And then the for the integration of GenAI capabilities in terms of the varieties of intents, right from the security intent on one side for the cybersecurity part, from the planning and then provisioning, from intelligence assurance, etc. So it is in, I would say, in progress in the roadmap. And the as part of overall R&D and POC, we are looking at that agentic part, what Bis had stated. The reason why I am saying we are in the proof of concept phase is already the neuron has a capability of workflows, connectivity to the telco IT systems, and then it has connectivity to the southbound systems and so on and so forth, and also to the big data lake, and then data systems. So the capabilities of agentic nature of GenAI is present. So it is through some of the impactful use cases what we are discussing with customer. We are in the process of doing the POC. That is our roadmap for Neuron in terms of the GenAI capability and where we are as of now as we are talking.
Thank you, Rajaji. Thank you, Bis. Much
Thank
appreciate
you.
the two of you joining today and sharing your insights. Thank you, audience, for joining us today. Have a good one. Thank you.